We celebrate the idea of thinking big. But when you are at the absolute bottom with zero resources, nurturing a massive ambition feels less like a strategy and more like a high-risk gamble you can't afford to lose. For a boy named Kabir, poverty was a physical weight. He lived in a small village where his shoes had holes, his school bag was torn, and his father returned from the fields with nothing to show for 12 hours of labor. His reality was defined by the immediate, his mother's untreated illness, and the persistent ache of hunger. Despite this, Kabir held a conviction that his family's story didn't have to end in those fields. But whenever he shared his goals, the village reacted with sharp, practical mockery. The local consensus was rigid. If your pockets are empty, you have no business looking at the horizon. They insisted his only responsibility was securing enough food to survive until the next sunrise. This creates a psychological chasm. How does a person bridge the gap between systemic poverty and high-level success without being broken by the sheer friction of their current environment? Kabir's pivot began by a river, where a teacher named Guruji found him struggling under the weight of the village's low expectations. Guruji handed Kabir a mirror and told him to look past the obvious exhaustion in his own reflection. He told Kabir that behind the pain of his current circumstances was a fire, a latent capability and a clear objective that most people allow the world to extinguish. Guruji explained that society would constantly try to dust over his potential with doubt and criticism. To succeed, Kabir had to treat his mindset as a piece of hardware that required daily maintenance, cleaning away the external noise through consistent, focused action. The first step toward a breakthrough is the decoupling of your future potential from your present hardship. You must treat belief as a fortress that requires an active psychological defense to remain standing. Mindset alone, however, is insufficient. Kabir understood that without an intense, disciplined structure, a big dream is indistinguishable from a hallucination. He began building this foundation. The first pillar was immediate income generation, washing glasses to provide baseline cash flow. The second pillar was technical skill acquisition, apprenticing with a mechanic to gain specialized knowledge. The third pillar was formal education, studying at night to prepare for high-level cognitive work. This phase was physically grueling. Kabir routinely bypassed sleep, comfort, and even meals to ensure all three pillars were growing simultaneously. Kabir was stacking specific competencies, cash flow, mechanical expertise, and academic knowledge into a combined force capable of lifting him out of the working class. Eventually, his technical skills allowed him to move from labor to ownership. He opened a tiny mobile repair stand, finally controlling his own time and margins. This is where the physics of wealth take over. He fed spare profits into a loop of reinvestment. The loop accelerated, transforming his stand into a retail electronics shop. Scaling to 3 locations meant reinvesting time into management systems. Finally, using his capital, he launched his own proprietary brand. Compounding turns disciplined, multi-layered labor into an economic engine. It demonstrates while starting with zero is a massive hurdle, it does not function as a permanent ceiling if reinvestment is handled with precision. The outcome was a total reversal of his baseline. Kabir's mother received the medical treatment she needed, and his father was able to leave the fields for a permanent retirement. The villagers who once mocked Kabir's empty pockets now stood in line at his corporate headquarters, hoping for a job at the company he built. When Guruji returned, he noted that the viability of a plan depends less on the cash in your pocket today than on the scope and clarity of the long-term objective. The path to breaking a cycle of poverty and establishing a new economic baseline is highly specific. It requires an active psychological defense, multidisciplinary execution, and ruthless reinvestment of every gain. If you feel the friction of a big ambition against a small environment, you have a responsibility to protect that vision. Maintain your mirror, apply the strict blueprint of reinvestment, and begin your own chapter of thinking big today.